Alright, this next unit that we're starting involves trigonometry and solving for angles and sides of right triangles using trigonometry. And so this first section that we are working with is titled 10.1 Trigonometric Ratios. And the first thing I want you to do is I want you to pause this video so that you can copy the vocabulary, and then I'll explain to you guys what each of those terms mean with the example. So pause this video and then copy the vocabulary. Alright, so we have three different sides in a triangle, and for trigonometry we label those sides as one side is opposite, one side is adjacent, and one side is the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse you are already familiar with. It is the longest side of the triangle. It is the side that is opposite or across from the right angle. So let's just label this one. So here I have the 90-degree angle. Opposite from that angle or across from that angle, I have side C. So in this case, I'm going to label side C with an H because that is the hypotenuse. So I'm just going to write that side C is the hypotenuse. So this you already know from the previous units from middle school. Just the hypotenuse is always the longest side of your triangle. So the two that are new are opposite and adjacent. So opposite is the side that is across from the given angle. So we kind of already worked with this when we were working with special right triangles. We were looking always at the opposite sides from the angles. So they're always going to give you an angle for trigonometry that you're going to work with. So in this case, they're always going to give you either B or A, not the 90-degree angle, just the other one of the other two angles. So in this case, I'm going to work with angle A. They're always going to mark the angle. Sometimes they'll give you the degree of the angle, or they're just going to mark it with a little curve to show you that that's the angle that we're working with. So here I'm marking angle A. That's the one that I'm going to work with for all of the examples in the notes. So I'm just going to mark them, and I want you to also mark them in your notes. Just put the little curve on all the angle A's in your pictures. That's the one that we're working with. So if they're asking me to label the opposite side of angle A, opposite from angle A, I have side A. I just used the lowercase, so I'm going to put an O right here to indicate that that's the opposite side. So I'm just going to write it right here. Side A is opposite from angle A. Okay, so adjacent, the next term, that means the side that is next to the given angle, but not the hypotenuse. So I'm working with angle A. So the side that is next to angle A and not the hypotenuse has to be side B. So I'm just going to circle this. Next to the angle is side B. So here I'm going to label that with A for adjacent. I'm going to say side B is adjacent to angle A. So remember, those two depend on the angle that they're giving you. So for example, if instead of A they marked angle B, then the side opposite from angle B would be side B. Same thing here. And if instead of A they marked B, adjacent to angle B would have been the side A because it's next to it. So it depends on the given angle. The one that just never changes is the hypotenuse. That one, it doesn't matter which angle they're giving you. Hypotenuse is always the longest side. So there's an assignment that I want you to practice on right now. I want you to pause this video, and I want you to practice on that assignment in which you only have to label side A or side opposite, side adjacent, and side H for each of the triangles that they give you. You don't have to do anything else, just label O for opposite, A for adjacent, and H for hypotenuse on each of the triangles that I give you. So pause the video and do that right now. Right, so second part or second assignment that you're going to work on deals with sine, cosine, and tangent, which are the equations from trigonometry that we use to solve for sometimes missing angles or missing sides. So the formula for sine is opposite over hypotenuse. We have to look at the opposite and the hypotenuse. For cosine, the formula for cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And the formula for tangent is opposite over adjacent. So for this part of the notes, I'm just going to set up a ratio, which is a fraction, to show what the sine of this triangle is. So they're asking me for sine of angle A. So to abbreviate sine, we use SIN. It's not sin, you pronounce it sine. So sine of angle A, because that's the angle they're marked, is opposite, which is A, lowercase a, over hypotenuse, which in this case is the C. This is the hypotenuse. C. And so again, you don't say sin, you said sine of angle A. Okay, so for cosine, I have adjacent over hypotenuse. So based on angle A, I need the side adjacent, that means next to it. So this one is adjacent over hypotenuse. Remember, C is always the hypotenuse, the longest side. So this one, to abbreviate cosine, we use COS. So cosine of angle A, it's going to be adjacent, which is side B, over hypotenuse, which is side C. And so the way you read that, it's cosine of angle A. And then the last one's tangent. Tangent, the equation, the formula is opposite over adjacent. So to abbreviate tangent, I use TAN. So tangent of angle A equals opposite, which is going to be the A, over adjacent, which is going to be the B. So A over B. And so again, you do not say tan, you say tangent of angle A. Okay, so those are just the formulas, the equations. So what you're going to practice today is just setting up the ratio for given triangles. So let's look at example 1. In example 1, they're giving me a right triangle, and now I actually have side lengths for the sides of the triangle, and they're just asking me to find the ratio. So I just have to find the fraction for sine, cosine, and tangent, and then I'm going to convert it into a decimal. So there's an acronym that we use a lot in geometry, and whenever you move on to trigonometry, that helps you remember the 3 functions: sine, cosine, and tangent. And so the acronym I'm going to give you guys is SOHCAHTOA. So I'm going to split out right here next to the example. It's SOHCAHTOA. And so the S stands for sine, and is opposite over hypotenuse. Remember, that's the formula, opposite over hypotenuse. The C stands for cosine, and that's adjacent over hypotenuse. It's the formula, A over H. And then the last part, the T stands for tangent, and that's opposite over adjacent, which is right here, the formula. Opposite over adjacent. So it's just a way to remember what the three functions are. So here, for example 1, we're working with angle R. They're asking me for the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of angle R. So I'm going to label angle R, and I mark it just like that to show that's the angle I'm working with. And so based on that angle, I am going to label the opposite, the adjacent, and the hypotenuse. So opposite from angle R, across from angle R, there's an 8. So that's my O. Next to angle R, adjacent, next to it is the 6. Not the 10, because remember that's the hypotenuse. I want the side. So 6 would be the adjacent. So I'm going to label that with A. And then the longest side, always across from the 90-degree angle, that's always H, the hypotenuse. So now I labeled my 3 sides, just like you were supposed to do on your first assignment. Now I'm just going to use that to determine the fractions. So sine, I already know, it's opposite over adjacent. Hypotenuse, I'm sorry, here's the formula, opposite over hypotenuse. So O over H. Opposite is 8. Over hypotenuse, H is 10. And so now I'm just going to convert that into a decimal. And that'll be it. So I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to change 8 over 10 to a decimal. That's 0.8. So that's my answer. That's the sine. Cosine. My formula for cosine is right here. Adjacent over hypotenuse, so A over H. The A is 6. The H is 10. So it's 6 over 10. And so if I put that in my calculator, 6 over 10, that's 0.6 as a decimal. And then the last one is tangent. Tangent, my formula, I have it right here, opposite over adjacent, O over A. The opposite is 8. The adjacent is the 6. So 8 over 6, change that into a decimal, type it in the calculator, 8 over 6. That's 1.3 repeating, rounding to the nearest 100, or nearest, 100, so I'm going to say 1.33. And that's all you're doing for today's assignment. Just give me the ratio and the fraction for each of those functions.